Thank you. I think those applause were actually for you, Senator Blunt. Let me thank you for your kind words and just say before Senator Blunt leaves what a principled and effective ally he is, what a believer in freedom he is, and how hard he has and will continue to fight on the side of the resistance in Iran until the tyrannical enemy regime that controls that great country is pushed out of power. Thank you, Roy Blunt, for your leadership. I'm really honored to be here. I don't know, I've been in this room so many times, but every time I come in here, I have a real sense of history. Some of the great events in Senate history have occurred in this room, great hearings and arguments on behalf of freedom and justice, and it's very appropriate that we are here today. I want to begin by thanking each of you for taking the time and making the effort to come to Washington. So the question is, will the extension of the nuclear talks block Tehran's path to the bomb? And I'll give you a simple answer and then try to explain it. My answer is no. If you follow the course of the negotiations, as I know you have, the P5+1, the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council plus Germany, including the United States, have moved and moved and moved toward Iran. Iran has not moved at all. We want to adopt an agreement that will guarantee us that this government of Iran, this radical, tyrannical government, will not be able to develop nuclear weapons within a year after the agreement. But who's going to police that? And what's the record of Iran on keeping these agreements of this regime? It's a terrible record. And nothing we have done, including the 7-month extension, alters the Iranian perception here. There's no reason to believe, I know everybody right up to President Obama says no deal is better than a bad deal. But right now, based on everything that's gone before, unless America changes its policy, in my opinion, there's no chance for a good deal. Unfortunately, there's still a risk of a bad deal, and it may be that there'll be no deal, and then we'll have to deal with the consequences of that. What can change this? Well, you came to the right place to help change this, because Congress has the power to take action after the first of the year with a new Congress to state the position of the American people and really to put pressure on the administration. And I want to mention 4 things that I think Congress can do and the administration can do. The first is that the administration, I'm afraid it won't do it, but it should make clear that there will be no more concessions to Iran in these talks, and no quick and total removal of sanctions until Iran has proven that it will abide by an agreement that is aggressively monitored and inspected. Second, Congress has an indispensable role to play in a couple of other areas. One is what was previously known as the Menendez-Kirk legislation, now will be known as Kirk-Menendez. Conditional sanctions. If there's not a good deal, tougher, crippling sanctions will be put on this regime. In other words, to change the calculation they're making and to lead them to conclude that, in fact, their regime has more to lose from no deal than the United States does. Another thing Congress can do, and I know will be considered after the first of the year, and I think adopted, will be a piece of legislation that makes clear that any agreement the administration negotiates with Congress negotiates with the Islamic Republic of Iran has to be approved by Congress. To treat it really like what it is, a treaty. This agreement, if one is reached, will have as much consequence on our security as any treaty that has been negotiated in recent years, more. And have Congress have to approve that. Those will be tough days. That'll be days when you'll be called on and allies around the country to come back. The president will veto that legislation, probably will veto Kirk Menendez. Republicans, I think, will stand squarely for an override of the veto. But the Democrats will be caught, will have a tough decision to make. But I think once they understand that the public is with them and with that legislation, and they will hear that from their constituents, that there's enough of them that will vote to override a veto. And then, though we hope and pray this is never necessary, the leaders of Iran must be dislodged from their current belief that the United States will not consider military action to disable their nuclear facilities if negotiations fail. One of the other pieces of action here in Congress is what might be called an authorization in advance for the use of military force. In other words, giving the president the authority to take military action against the nuclear program if he determines that's in the national security interest of the United States. There's an old expression coming that sometimes the best way to achieve peace is to prepare for war. It is much better to be feared than to be loved. And we're dealing with Iran. It is definitely much better to be feared than to be loved. The way this comes out, this is a critical 7 months ahead, not just for our relations with Iran, but frankly for our relations with the rest of the world. And I'll just really end with this. We're at a point, based on earlier decisions that have been made, that a lot of our allies around the world think we're a superpower that's not willing to use our power. They also think that we spend more time as a country trying to accommodate our enemies rather than standing with our friends. And that's a very dangerous place for us in the world to be. If the U.S. agrees to a bad deal with Iran, it will not only change history in the Middle East in a bad way, but it will shake up our allies in the Middle East and far beyond, Asia Pacific, Africa, Latin America, so that they will begin to reach a conclusion that they can't rely on us. They will either seek arms of their own to protect themselves, or they'll try to accommodate themselves to the local powers, the regional powers, which are often hostile to our interest. Bottom line, we have a critical 7 months ahead, and the way America behaves will go a long way toward determining whether this world of ours will be as safe and secure and free as for our children and grandchildren as it has been for most of us. Thank you very much. I look forward to the discussion.